Have you ever wondered what makes a brick feel solid? Most people believe the world is made of tiny, hard little spheres called atoms. They picture them like microscopic billiard balls stacking together to build you, me, and this screen. That is not just a little wrong, it is fundamentally, embarrassingly wrong. Here is the truth. Matter is an illusion. Every physical object in the universe is actually made of trapped, spinning light. You have felt this. Think about it. Try this right now. Clap your hands together hard. Feel that smack? That sharp sting in your palms? You probably think you just slapped real physical stuff together. Wrong. Your atoms never actually touched, not even close. What you felt was invisible electromagnetic light fields violently repelling each other. Everything around you is just pure energy locked in a cage of its own making. Today, I am going to prove it to you. I am going to walk you through a shift in perspective that collapses classical physics entirely. Let me show you. Now, here is the part nobody tells you. When we say something is solid, we are just describing a human feeling. We are simply describing the aggressive pushback of force fields. If you remove those electric fields, your hand would slip right through your desk. Stop. Think about that. If matter is just fields violently pushing against other fields, where is the actual stuff? Where is the heavy, rigid core of the universe? People say atoms have a solid nucleus, but that's just a label. If you zoom in, the solid parts completely vanish. They dissolve into a fuzzy, jittery mess of pure energy. They wobble, twist, and snap like stretched rubber bands vibrating in a dark void. That sounds impossible until you see the trick. To understand why reality is playing this massive trick on your brain, we have to step back. We have to look at the most ordinary, boring objects around us. Because the terrifying truth about mass, it is hiding in plain sight. Let's talk about a bowling ball. Pick it up in your mind. Feel the drag. It is heavy. It pulls down on your wrist. If you drop it on your foot, it shatters bones. You might say, that weight proves it is solid stuff. Wrong. That weight is a trick. Here's the part nobody tells you. The heaviness you feel has almost nothing to do with physical stuff. Look at the ball. If you expand that bowling ball to the size of the Earth, the actual matter inside it, the supposed hard stuff, would be the size of a few grains of sand. The rest is totally, entirely empty, or so we are told. People say atoms are mostly empty space, but that's just a label. Space is never empty. It is boiling. It is a storm. Close your eyes and imagine a tornado. A tornado is just moving air, right? Air is incredibly light. You wave your hand through it all day long. But what happens when that same invisible air spins at 300 miles an hour? It becomes a wall. It rips roofs off houses. It hits you like a solid freight train. Did the air suddenly become solid matter? No. The energy of the spin created the brutal illusion of mass. Now watch what this implies. Try this. Hold a spinning bicycle tire by the pegs and try to tilt it. It pushes back. It fights your hands. The bowling ball is exactly the same thing. You are not feeling rigid chunks of reality pulling on your wrist. You are feeling a microscopic tornado. You are feeling furious twisting energy, fighting to stay contained in a tiny space. Let me say that again, because it should break your brain. Mass is not a permanent property of an object. Mass is an activity. It is a verb. It is something energy does. Every single ounce of that bowling ball's weight is just confined motion, jiggling, wobbling, snapping back and forth near the speed of light. This is where your intuition completely fails. Because if weight is just trap motion, what is doing the moving? What is the invisible wind inside our microscopic tornado? If we crack open the smallest pieces of the ball, we should find something, right? Let's zoom in even closer. Let's rip the bowling ball apart, down to its absolute core. Because when we finally peel back the skin of the atom itself, the real nightmare begins. Let's peel the atom open. Imagine a single atom is the size of a giant echoing cathedral. Where is the solid stuff? Where is the mass? You might look for a massive, heavy boulder sitting dead in the center. Wrong. If the atom is a cathedral, the nucleus, the heavy part, is a single housefly buzzing in the middle. That tiny fly holds 99.9% of the atom's total weight. But let's catch that fly. Let's pry it open and look inside. Inside the nucleus, we find protons and neutrons. People say these are the fundamental building blocks of reality, but that's just a label. They are not solid blocks. They are turbulent bags of chaos. Inside these bags are even tinier things called quarks. Now watch what this implies. If you weigh the 3 quarks inside a proton, they only account for about 1% of the proton's mass. Wait, stop. Think about this right now. 1%. Where is the other 99% of the bowling ball's weight coming from? If the quarks are practically weightless, what is actively dragging down your wrist? Most textbooks skip this next part. Let's not. Because the missing weight isn't a thing at all. It is pure, violent motion. Quarks don't just sit there. They rip back and forth at blinding speeds. They are chained together by the strong nuclear force. They stretch away, snap back, and wobble violently, like rabid dogs on extremely tight bungee cords. This invisible bungee cord is made of particles called gluons. Gluons have absolutely zero mass. Quarks have almost zero mass. Yet together, their furious twisting and snapping creates 99% of your actual body weight. Look closely at what the math is actually whispering here. Mass is an illusion generated by violently confined energy. It is literally massless stuff jiggling so aggressively it creates the brutal feeling of heavy weight. That heavy bowling ball? It is entirely made of frantic, snapping bungee cords, nothing more. But hold on, it gets weirder. If everything is just violently wobbling energy, why doesn't it fly apart? Why does it stay trapped inside that tiny, invisible cathedral? Why doesn't the energy just bleed out into the dark void? To answer that, we have to confront the biggest lie you were taught in school, the lie of empty space. Let's talk about nothing. Close your eyes and imagine the black void of outer space. You probably picture total, absolute emptiness, a quiet, dead vacuum where nothing exists. Wrong. That is the biggest lie in modern science. People say a vacuum is empty space, but that's just a label. There is no such thing as empty anywhere in our universe. Empty space is actually a boiling, violent ocean of invisible energy. Here's the part nobody tells you. If you take a completely empty box, pump out every single atom, and block all the light, it is still completely full. If you zoom in close enough to that nothingness, you don't find a quiet void. You find a raging storm. You find particles popping in and out of existence, snapping and flashing like fireflies. We call this the quantum foam. It wobbles, twists, and churns at unimaginable speeds. Try this right now. Imagine looking at the calm surface of the ocean from an airplane. It looks flat. It looks peaceful. Dead empty. Now zoom in. Drop down to the water level. You see crashing waves, violent foam, and chaotic turbulence pushing and pulling. The fabric of space is exactly like that. Every inch of the universe is filled with invisible fields. When these fields are quiet, we call it empty space. When we pluck them, they vibrate. Look closely at what the math is actually whispering here. An electron isn't the tiny solid ball dropped into an empty room. It is just a knot in the electron field, a little vibrating ripple trapped in that boiling ocean. That sounds impossible until you see the trick. Because if matter is just knots in a violent ocean of fields, and mass is just the energy of those knots snapping and jiggling, then we have completely destroyed the idea of solid stuff. Everything is just an excitation, a vibration. You are just a very complicated wave crashing through the quantum foam. But hold on, it gets weirder. Because if everything is just energy waving through fields, how does a wave get heavy? How does a ripple in nothingness shatter your foot when you drop it? To finally understand how light traps itself to build you, we need to read the most famous equation in history, but we have to read it backwards. Let's read Einstein's most famous equation. You know it. You've seen it printed on coffee mugs and t-shirts. E equals mc squared. Most textbooks skip this next part. Let's not, because almost everyone reads it completely backwards. People say this equation proves mass can turn into energy. They think of the atomic bomb. They picture a solid chunk of uranium exploding into pure fire. They picture releasing energy from a cage. Wrong. That is just a label, a tiny fraction of the truth. Look closely at what the math is actually whispering. Let me say that again because it should break your brain. It's not just an explosion. It is an instruction manual for building reality itself. Here's the part nobody tells you. If energy can explode out of matter, then matter must just be highly concentrated, frozen energy. The equal sign goes both ways. M equals c squared. Try this right now. Imagine packing a blindingly bright laser beam into an incredibly tiny box. You stuff it in so tightly that it can't move forward anymore. It just bounces off the walls violently, back and forth forever. That bouncing trapped light now has inertia. It pushes back if you try to move the box. It resists you. It feels heavy. Now watch what this implies. You just created mass out of thin air, out of pure light. That sounds impossible until you see the trick. Einstein didn't just tell us how to blow things up. He told us that a bowling ball, an anvil, a human being, they are just unimaginably dense balls of trapped energy. You might say, but I can touch things. Wrong. You are feeling the electromagnetic repulsion of that trapped energy. You are feeling the violent jiggle of confined forces. The stuff of the universe is just light, twisted so tightly it forgot how to fly straight. This is where your intuition completely fails. If we are made of trapped light, what is doing the trapping? How does a wave of energy traveling at 300 million meters a second suddenly stop? How does it fold up, snap shut, and build an atom? To understand that, we need to look at the invisible cage holding the universe together. We need to see the mechanism. Let's build a cage for a beam of light. How do you stop something moving at 670 million miles per hour? People say light always travels in a straight line forever, but that's just a label. In the very early universe, everything was just pure blinding energy. No mass, no atoms, no heavy bowling balls, just massless waves zipping around at maximum cosmic speed. Then the universe cooled down and an invisible ocean froze into existence. We call it the Higgs field. Here's the part nobody tells you. Before this invisible field turned on, you couldn't exist. Nothing could clump together to build a planet or a human heart. Everything was just flying apart, infinitely fast. But when the Higgs field woke up, it changed the rules of reality. Try this right now. Imagine dragging a smooth glass marble across wet ice. It glides. It slips effortlessly. That is a massless particle. Now, plunge that same marble into a jar of thick, cold molasses and pull. It drags. It pulls back. It fights you. It suddenly feels incredibly heavy. Exactly. The Higgs field is the cosmic molasses. When certain waves of energy try to fly through it, they get tangled up. They interact with the field, bouncing, twisting, and wobbling violently. This is where your intuition completely fails. Because these waves aren't actually slowing down. The fundamental energy inside them is still trying to fly at the speed of light. But it gets trapped in a microscopic pinball machine. It bounces left, right, up, down, furiously zigzagging in place. Physicists call this violent jittering motion Zitterbewegung. The energy is trapped in a tiny, furiously localized loop. It is quite literally energy that caught its own tail. Look closely at what the math is actually whispering here. An electron is not a hard little pearl. It is just a massless wave of energy, trapped in a vibrating dance. The cage isn't made of iron or steel. The cage is made of interaction. The mass of the electron is just the brutal inertia of that trapped, frustrated light. Now watch what this implies. If you are made of atoms, and atoms are made of these particles, and these particles are just trapped, jittering waves of energy, you are literally just a walking, breathing cage of confined light. That sounds impossible until you see the trick. Because how does a tiny jittering loop of light actually create raw weight? How does a bunch of trapped waves push a bathroom scale down to 180 pounds? To prove this to you, we have to build the ultimate thought experiment. We need to build a magic box, a box lined perfectly with mirrors. Let's build a magic box. Imagine a totally sealed, perfectly mirrored box sitting on a bathroom scale. Inside, it is pitch black. The scale reads 0 pounds. Now imagine a tiny window on the side. We shine a blinding, powerful flashlight inside. Pop! We close the window, trapping the light perfectly. People say light has 0 mass, but that's just a label. It's true that a single photon flying forever through space weighs absolutely nothing. But inside our magic box? Here's the part nobody tells you. The light is bouncing off the mirrored walls. It hits the left wall, pushing it. It hits the right wall, pushing back, up, down, side to side, violently, 1 trillion times a second. The box is full of angry, trapped energy. Look closely at what the scale is actually whispering here. The scale no longer reads 0. The box got heavier. You might say, but I can touch things. Light is invisible. Wrong. The light literally added mass to the box, because that bouncing energy is exerting pressure. It is pushing on the walls. If you try to push the box across the table, it resists you. The light inside fights your push, bouncing harder against the back wall than the front. Now watch what this implies. You are feeling the inertia of trapped light. That resistance, that heavy feeling, that is exactly what mass is. Every atom in your body is a microscopic box of mirrors. Let me say that again because it should break your brain. Your protons and neutrons are just tiny, unimaginably strong boxes. Inside them, massless quarks and massless gluons are bouncing furiously. They are slamming against the invisible walls of the strong nuclear force. This is where your intuition completely fails. 99% of your mass is just the brutal kinetic energy of those trapped waves. You are quite literally a complex system of bouncing light. You are a standing wave, confined to a small region of space. That sounds impossible until you see the trick. Because if we crack open those tiny boxes, if we let the mirrors break and the light escape, we get atomic bombs. We get stars burning in the night sky. Because energy is just mass set free, and mass is just energy trapped in a cage. But hold on, it gets weirder. If this is true, it doesn't just change how we look at bowling balls, it collapses the entire foundation of classical physics. It destroys everything we thought we knew about reality itself. Let's collapse physics entirely. For 300 years, Isaac Newton taught us a comfortable lie. He told us the universe was a giant clockwork machine. People say classical physics is the ultimate truth, but that's just a label. Newton said mass was an innate, permanent property of stuff. He said a rock was just a rock, sitting in empty space. He said forces pulled on objects, but the objects themselves never changed their fundamental nature. Wrong. Here's the part nobody tells you. If mass is just confined energy, then matter is not a noun. Matter is a verb. It is something the universe is actively doing right now. Look closely at what the math is actually whispering. You are not a static object sitting in a chair. You are an ongoing process. You are a trillion microscopic explosions perfectly contained by invisible fields. Try this right now. Hold your hand up and stare at it. It looks solid. It feels solid. It casts a shadow. Now watch what this implies. If you could turn off the strong nuclear force for 1 second, if you could shatter the tiny boxes of mirrors inside your atoms, You would instantly vaporize into a blinding flash of pure light. You wouldn't just explode. You would cease to be stuff. You would become pure radiation, expanding at 670 million miles per hour. Let me say that again because it should break your brain. Your body contains enough trapped energy to vaporize a mountain range. The only reason you exist as a solid person is because the universe is squeezing you. It is violently holding your light together. This is where your intuition completely fails. Because if classical physics is dead, what replaces it? If there is no stuff, only fields and energy, then the universe is not a clockwork machine at all. It is a symphony. It is a vast, endless ocean of vibrating quantum fields. The particles we think of as matter are just the high notes, plucked violently. They are the crests of waves crashing against each other in the dark. That sounds impossible until you see the trick. We are not made of the universe. We are something the universe is doing. And to truly understand the scale of this illusion, we have to zoom out, past the bowling ball, past the atom, past the earth itself. We have to look at the entire cosmos, because the trick isn't just happening here in your room. It is happening everywhere, all at once, in the most violent places imaginable. Let's zoom out to the stars. Close your eyes and imagine a massive blue giant star out in the void. It is boiling with nuclear fire, violently crushing atoms together. People say stars are solid factories of matter, but that's just a label. They are actually doing the opposite. Stars are slowly untrapping light. They are breaking the tiny boxes of mirrors. Here's the part nobody tells you. When a star smashes two hydrogen atoms together to make helium, the new helium atom actually weighs slightly less than the two original pieces. Where did the missing mass go? Look closely at what the universe is actually whispering here. It didn't disappear. It stopped being trapped. It became pure, flying, unchained light. It bursts out of the star as sunshine. It flies across space, hits your skin, and warms you up. Now watch what this implies. That light hitting your face used to be heavy mass inside a star. It used to be physical, tangible stuff. It was confined energy pushing against itself. Let me say that again because it should break your brain. Sunshine is literally just liberated matter. And you are just frozen sunshine. Every atom in your body was forged in the violent heart of a dying star. This is where your intuition completely fails, because the universe is just trading energy back and forth forever. It traps light to build a planet. It crushes atoms to release light. It is a cosmic breathing exercise. Inhale, matter. Exhale, radiation. You are not a separate solid piece of the puzzle. You are literally just the universe interacting with itself, a temporary knot of energy spinning violently in the quiet dark. That sounds impossible until you see the trick. Because if we are just trapped light from dead stars, if mass is just an illusion of kinetic motion, if the empty space between us is a boiling ocean of quantum foam, then everything you thought you knew about reality was wrong. You are a ghost living in a machine made of force fields. But there is one final terrifying piece of this puzzle left. One deep truth that changes everything. So far we've learned that solidity is a complete lie. We learned that mass is just a furious microscopic tornado of trapped energy. That empty space is a boiling ocean, and you are just a complicated wave crashing through it. People say this makes human beings tiny and insignificant, but that's just a label. Wrong. Here's the part nobody tells you. When you finally realize that your body is made of the exact same twisting, bouncing light as the stars above you, you stop being a tiny, fragile object trapped inside a massive, cold universe. You are the universe, folding in on itself. Stop. Think about this right now. Think of someone you deeply care about. When you reach out and hold their hand, you aren't touching dead, solid stuff. You are feeling the violent, beautiful electromagnetic force of a billion trapped suns pushing back against your own. Now watch what this implies. You are a walking, breathing cage of confined light, looking out into a cosmos made of the exact same fields. Look closely at what the math is actually whispering to us. It's not just particle physics. It's a deeply personal revelation. It's not just trapped energy. It's the universe waking up for a brief moment to understand itself. We are literally light, confined to a tiny cage of interaction, given just enough time to look around and figure out exactly what we are. That sounds impossible until you see the trick. If this shift in perspective broke your brain even a little bit, hit the subscribe button below. Join me, and let's keep pulling the hidden threads of reality together, one illusion at a time. Because the next time you clap your hands together, or feel the heavy, dragging weight of a bowling ball on your wrist, I want you to remember the sheer scale of the magic trick. You aren't touching matter. You are just touching frozen light.